Hello, welcome to Board Game Bonkers. I'm Jace here, and this is a free links review where we're going to concentrate on worker placement. That's right, we're going to look at free worker placement games. Now, before we actually get started, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you just clicked on this video and you're new to our channel. Well, welcome, and please do subscribe to the channel. And at the end, please do consider liking our videos and leaving a comment down below. Leave one, get involved. I'd like to create a sense of community here. So what is this free links review? We'll look at 3 different board games. Now, unlike a previous free links review, we're not going to be reviewing all of these games. Instead, we're going to be concentrating on the mechanism or the element of that game. We're going to concentrate on is worker placement in this essence. So we've got 3 games. What are they? Well, we're going to look at Tiny Epic Dinosaurs. We're going to look at Viticulture, the Essential Edition, and then we're going to look at Architects of the West Kingdom. Now, it's important to denote that we're not going to go into covering an overview of each of these games. I'll give you a very brief description. That's because we will cover full reviews of each of these games at some point, but this is going to be a very brief overview of just to get a general sense of how the game might play, and then we'll get discussed the worker placement element. So that gives you a sense of, well, which kind of worker placement games do you enjoy? Do you like this one or that one? So let's get started. Let's start first off with Architects of the West Kingdom. Architects of the West Kingdom is a worker placement game, hence the name of the title. And what you'll be doing, you start off quite uniquely with a lot of workers. And what you'll be doing is placing the workers out into these spots. And in these spots, you have the big, large circles, which means you can place any number of your workers on those spots, including opponents. There's no restrictions. The spaces with the small circles, you're going to place one worker there. And what you're doing is placing workers out to gather resources, stone, brick, etc., wood and gold and silver. So you're trying to get those resources. And what you're then doing is you're going to try and get apprentices. You go to the spot and get apprentices. What's unique with that is the money you spend on gaining apprentices actually will go into a tax area. That's right. So players can go to that tax area and collect a big pot of silver. You can also, in the same spot as collecting your apprentices, as buildings as well. But what you need to do is you need to get your workers into the guild hall in order to build those buildings, as well as have the apprentices with the matching icons in the top left to be able to build that particular building, and that will give you and earn you points. What you can also do in the game, which is a little bit unique in the worker placement element, is you can actually, as an option, is go to the town hall or town centre, I think it might be called, and gather all of a particular colour of meeples workers that are in a particular spot. So for example, if there are 3 workers in a spot, you can go to the town centre and then capture them. They go into your player board, and then there's an option, perhaps the next round, the next turn, you'll be able to then place them into prison. That's right, and then the opponent needs to try and get those workers back. So there's quite a few unique elements. One other area you'll be looking at is the guild halls. You place them in the guild hall to build buildings, but you need apprentices to do that. But also you'll be able to help them, you'll be able to help and build the cathedral. The cathedral, you'll be going up this track, it'll give you pay the resources, and it'll give you a card with some benefit on it. And finally, you have the black market. The black market, which is down the bottom left of the board, where you can do some, well, naughty things, and you will have what's called a resource used in this game on the track is called virtue. So certain cards give you virtue, certain lose virtue. So for example, when you go to the black market, you'll lose some virtue, but it'll give you much better deals. Not really good early on in the game. We get lots of great resources really quickly. Perhaps you're struggling to get resources in the main worker placement spots. So that just gives you an idea in terms of how that game plays. And as well as that, the cards give you some different benefits. For example, it might give you virtue, or it might give you minus virtue, or it might give you another benefit. Some cards might help you to go to the black market. Some others might help you with buildings, whatever it might do. The cards do various different things, but that gives you a bit of a flavour and sense of this game. Now we want to give a very brief overview of Viticulture. Now, Viticulture is the Essential Edition, which is just a little bit different than the original Viticulture, because you now get this lead kind of grande worker. So what you'll be doing is worker placement, placing your workers out in the spots. Now you'll notice that some have 2 or 3 different spots, and it depends on the number of players. For example, in a 2-player, then you only use the first spot in that particular area on the board. If it was a 3-player, you'd use the first 2 spots, for example. And usually the middle spot will give you an additional bonus in that area. So what you'll be doing is you'll be going to the different spots. You have 2 different phases. So you have essentially a summer, and then you have your kind of fall and winter. And what you'll be able to do, you're not restricted in how many of your workers you can place out in that particular phase. You can place maybe a couple in summer and wait till winter to place the remaining amount in winter. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to fulfill orders. You're trying to produce wine by harvesting your vines into grapes, and you have your own little player board. So what you'll be doing is collecting these cards. You'll then be trying to get those grapes and then obviously process those grapes, which then allows you to then create wine and then sell those wines in the orders that you'll be collecting. So it's a very smooth and streamlined game in terms of place your work out there, collect the resource, and you have this grande kind of lead worker where that can go on a space where another worker is. So you can break those worker placement rules. We also have this track, this kind of turn order track, and what's really smart and unique about that is that the further down you go on that track, the greater the benefit is. But of course, you're going to be going last or near the end, whereas you're at the top, you're guaranteed to go first, but you might get a not so good of a benefit, or if you're in the number 1 spot, you might not get a benefit, you won't get a benefit at all. So I really like how that game functions. You'll be taking people on wine tours to gain points, you'll be fulfilling your contract cards, you'll be trying to get cards to produce wine, to harvest, they get the grapes, or the vines are called, vine cards, then obviously produce into grapes, and then obviously transfer into wine. And then you can upgrade as well. So you've got certain things you can do on your board, like get a windmill, it'll give you an extra vine card, for example. So you've got various different aspects to this game, but it's quite straightforward in its gameplay. So finally, I just want to give you a very brief overview of Tiny Epic Dinosaurs. So this is a very small box game, and you have your different player mats you'll be putting out. And it's very simple worker placement. You place your worker out on a spot. Now all the spots, for the vast majority, you can only place 1 worker out there. However, you have a lead rancher, so you probably place your lead rancher out and access 2 to place in a spot where there's already a rancher there. And players can continue to do so. For example, I could decide I want to place a rancher out there onto a spot's already taken. I have to make sure there's at least 1 more than what's already placed out in that spot. So you're not restricted in placing out in the spot you really want to go to. You just need to place more ranchers out. And what you'll be doing is trying to get as many dinosaurs into your park and fulfill contracts. There's 2 different types of contracts. You have public and you have private contracts. Now you can't fulfill the private contracts until you do a public contract on the same turn. So you have to fulfill that public contract before you can fulfill a private contract. You're going to these worker placement spots to get resources. You've got 2 different types of dinosaurs. Ones that obviously are vegetarian, ones that eat meat. So you've got your 2 main resources. And you've got a third resource as well, which is essentially goods. And the different worker placement spots do various different things. Some gather resources, some will gather dinosaurs. And there's a unique little way of doing this, because there's that worker placement spot where you can pay a resource to get a dinosaur of your choice. Or if you don't have the resource, you can roll a die, and that die will determine, for example, where you get scratched. If you do, you go to a medical with your dinosaur, and you have to wait till a future turn to get that dinosaur and your rancher back. You might get an extra dinosaur because you've got 2 instead of 1, which might hurt you because you might not have enough room in your ranch and your dinosaur park to be able to cope and accommodate that. There's also an element in the game where dinosaurs can escape and then they'll hurt you, and that then will mess up your plan. You have to build fences as well, or barriers are called, to prevent your dinosaurs from escaping out of your dinosaur park. And the objective is trying to fulfill those contract cards, but to get points, but you also get points at the end of the game from the dinosaurs you've got in your park. The final thing I haven't mentioned, you have these research cards which give you a benefit, which is really good. And there's 2 different types of research cards. One of them will give you a dinosaur, which is both, will be a vegetarian and a meat eater. And then you have other cards that give you other types of benefits but those cards that give you an extra dinosaur, you only get the benefit on that card if you've still got the dinosaur in your park. So you're kind of fighting back and forth about, do I want to get rid of that dinosaur to fulfill this contract? And if I do so, I'm going to lose my ability. So I really like that in the game. And there's a variety of different worker placement spots you can choose from. So that just gives you a bit of a flavour of these three games. Very brief overview. And of course, I will cover a full in-depth review of these three games. Now let's talk about the worker placement elements in these games, because that's what we want to concentrate on. So let's start with Architects of West Kingdom. Now, what's really good about this, and a little bit more unique than others, in the large circles, you can place as many of your workers there as you like. You're not restricted. So I can place another one. The more I place there, the more resources I get. So if I have 3 workers there, I'll get 3 of that type of resource. Some you might only get 1, for example. With the gold is you need two of your workers to get 1 gold. But the more you place there, the more you get. And what's really clever is that you can go to the town centre and you can capture all the workers of that same type of colour from a particular space. So for example, if there were 4 red workers in a particular space, I could round them up and place them on my player board with then the option in the next turn to then send them to prison. Now, of course, the opponent can get those workers back by paying that opponent a resource, what the required resources to get those workers back, or they can wait till they're in prison to then pay the state essentially the cost to get those workers back. So I really like that, how that function and works. And what's interesting is I'm not restricted in how many I place. I can keep placing and being greedy, but there's a risk that somebody might capture all my workers if I keep placing too many. So you're trying to balance that out. Maybe I shouldn't place another one there. Maybe I should go somewhere else. You also need to make that decision about recalling your workers back. When's the right time to recall them back? But you have a lot to start with, so there's so many options of, oh God, I've got too many, what do I do? But eventually, when you start building your buildings, you have to place them in the guild. To build a building, you will start reducing the amount of workers you've got as the game progresses. So I really like that worker placement. Now, there is some spots, smaller circles, where you can only place 1 worker there, and there's no rule that allows you to place any more. So you are restricted. That's used the black market and there's a couple other places, but you're restricted in those places to place 1 worker only. But I like that this game gives a bit more flexibility in other worker placements, and it's a really clever mechanism where the opponent can capture all meeples of the same colour from a particular spot. That is clever, and I really like that. If we talk more then about viticulture, okay, because that uses it a different way. It uses more of a traditional worker placement, but it gives you that grande large worker where you can place on any spot, even if it's occupied. I really like that. It's really simple and streamlined, and the option is, when the decision space is, when do I use that? When do I hold it back? Because usually I want to use that as your last one, because I don't want to be too restricted. So I want to keep that back and use it only when I really need it, because perhaps there's a particular spot you need to go to. And in a lower player count, you're restricted by just 1 spot on the spaces, so therefore you have to plan that out when you're going to use that grande worker. Obviously, with more players, 3 and 4, there's more spaces open. But I really like that simplicity, and it just adds just a small extra element to the standard worker placement. So let's now move on to the worker placement for Tiny Epic Dinosaurs. Now that again uses a very basic streamlined worker placement where you place a worker there and only 1 can go there. However, the rules allow you to say, well, if you want to go there as well, you have to place an additional rancher out in order to carry that action out. So for example, if the rancher is already out there in the space, I could have to place 2, or I place my large lead rancher out to carry that action out. So I look like that option that I've got, but I'm wasting my lead rancher or 2 standard ranchers to carry an action out, and I don't want to do that. So I really like that and enjoy that in Tiny Epic Dinosaurs. And there's lots of options and where you can go, especially in lower player count. If there's more options than in higher player count, it's much tighter with more players. So perhaps it could have been scaled a bit better in terms of the worker placement spots in Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, just like they've done with Viticulture. But I really like how you've got a lot of options to where you choose to go in Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, which resource do I need, or if I'm really desperate for something, I can place extra ranchers out there to be able to take that particular action. And so it's really clever in how that works, keeps it simple and streamlined without trying to overcomplicate it. So you can see the 3 different ways in how worker placement works in within these games. So which one do I prefer? Which one is my favourite with just worker placement? I'm a sucker for using traditional mechanisms and just tweaking them slightly. I really like both how Viticulture and Tiny Epic Dinosaurs tackle that, because I'm not overwhelmed by the options as such, but I can hold back and think, right, I've got my lead worker or rancher worker, depending on which game it is, and I can use that and go wherever I like. And if in Tiny Epic Dinosaurs I want to carry out a particular action, really desperate, I just put more ranchers out there than what is already on that space. So I really like it. It keeps it simple and streamlined and just tweaks the rules ever so slightly in a standard worker placement. With Architects of the West Kingdom, it's more about, well, I can place as many as I want there, but there's a risk that somebody's going to round them up and throw them in jail. So that can feel a little bit mean. And it can also feel satisfying when you're getting all these resources. So you get this epic kind of uplift of amazing, getting all these resources, brilliant, and all of a sudden somebody throws them in prison. And then you feel a bit, oh God, that's not great. That's bad. What am I going to do? I need to get them back. So you have this kind of up and down of this feeling that you get from that. But you've also got spaces that are restricted as well in Architects of West Kingdom, where you can only place one worker out there. But the kind of element of having that flexibility and choice is good. Which one do I prefer? I think, this is tough. I don't actually prefer one of them. I think I more prefer Tiny Epic Dinosaurs and Viticulture more than the Architects of the West Kingdom. And I think that's because I don't like that take that element as much where somebody runs up all my workers and puts them in prison. I'm not a fan of that. To me, that's quite a harsh element of the game. But some people might be okay with that, and it's part of the fun of the game. It just isn't for me. So I much prefer the Viticulture and Tiny Epic Dinosaurs worker placement and how that works, because it keeps a tradition of worker placement and just tweaks it ever so slightly. Now, I will do reviews of these 3 games separately to give you an in-depth view of what my thoughts are about the games and give them a final scoring. But if you enjoy this new look of the 3 links review and how we compare 3 different games, particularly looking at the type of mechanism that's being used, and whether you want us to continue doing this, please let us know in the comments down below. And please don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button and give our videos a thumbs up. It really is appreciated, and it helps us to grow the channel. Without your support and your involvement, well, the channel just won't exist. We hope you enjoy this, and for more content, please do check out the other videos in our playlists. And until next time, take care.